If you've never attended the Go Wild Planner Conference and are considering going for the first time in 2025, then this is the video for you because I'm going to be chatting about my experience in 2024 and how that is helping me decide whether or not to go in 2025. So stay tuned. Hey guys, I'm Tracy and this is A Girl with Plans. I want to thank you all for pressing that play button today. And if you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you and I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button while you're here, as well as maybe checking out some of my other videos. So today's video is a planner chat and I want to chat all about Go Wild. Now, I attended my very first Go Wild conference in 2024. So I'll be chatting a little bit about that, but when I returned from that conference, I filmed a few videos, one of which I kind of talked about my overall experience and my overall impressions. So definitely check out that video if you're interested in hearing that perspective. I will have it linked down in the description box. Today, I'm going to chat more about what to expect at Go Wild that might encourage you to either buy or not buy your admissions ticket, which is pretty pricey. So you definitely need to think hard about that. So yeah, that's going to be the focus of this video, mainly because when it comes to whether or not it's worth the money or whether or not it's an enjoyable conference is going to completely depend on the person itself and the experiences that that person has. So it's going to vary from person to person. Some things that people absolutely loved at one conference, another person that attended may not have really liked that. So it's just going to vary. So that's the reason why I'm not going to chat too much about that. I do want to say that this year's planner conference is taking place in Indianapolis, Indiana, May the 15th through the 18th. And that is a week before the Indy 500. So I am not really into racing or Formula One or anything like that, but I'm kind of excited about that. It's kind of cool that a big event is happening kind of around the time that we're there. Now, none of the main events are going to be happening while we're there because obviously it's a week later. I think like the parade is like 4 days after the conference is over. So, we're not going to be hitting that, which is probably a good thing because I think it's going to be like super crowded during that time. But there are some events going on while we're there. There's like some preliminary qualifying events as well as some practice sessions. So that might be a way to kind of like tip the scales if you're on the fence or whatever. Like I said, whether or not you're a fan of like Formula One or not. I'm not, but I'm actually thinking about going. I think it'd be kind of cool to like check out, although it might include like having to extend like a day to the trip, but hey, you're already there. Why not, right? I'm going to kind of break this down in a few ways. And mainly what I'm going to be talking about when we're talking about the conference is like the overall schedule, like how the conference is laid out, and then kind of going over the overall cost, because those are sort of like the two main things that pretty much everybody has to take into account when considering whether or not they can even go to the conference. We're not even talking about wanting to go at this point. This is just the can you go at this point. So that's how I'm going to kind of break this video down. So like I said, the first question is the schedule. Does the schedule work for you? Like I said, it's the 15th through the 18th. So when we're talking about the 15th through the 18th, there's no conference. So it's really the 15th through the 17th. If you really want to be like on point, it ends on the 17th, it ends at 10 p.m. on the 17th, which is why I think they say the 18th. But there's nothing going on the 18th at all. So technically you can leave on the 17th. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're going to leave after Plan Jamma, because Plan Jamma is the big party that wraps it all up. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was like a club atmosphere. So I guess if that's not your thing, and if that's just gonna like completely make you miserable, then you might want to adjust like your leave time. So I would say try to give it a try because it was a lot of fun. So like I said, it really technically ends at 10 p.m. on the 17th. Your conference days are really just the Friday and Saturday. So that will be the 16th and the 17th. And your conference sessions start at 8 a.m. both days, and they generally end around 1:30. However, then you have your nighttime events. So on Friday, you have a wild crop night, which I'm assuming none of this has been released. I'm just going by what happened in Texas as well as what I knew of prior conferences. So at that session, it was from 7 until like 9:30 on Friday. So you went in the morning from 8 to like 1:30, and then you went again from 7 until like 9:30 at night. So, I mean, even though you had that big break, it still was a long day. And then Saturday, it was the same thing, like 8-ish until 1:30. And then you had your plan JAMA, which is 7 to 10. So you definitely want to make sure you're there for those. You definitely want to make sure you're early on Friday. That's the day that people line up early, because that's a sponsored table day, and everybody like wants to get into the room, like be one of the first into the room to have like their top picks or their best picks of the tables. I will say, I'm not going to really chat too much about the sponsored tables. I was kind of like, I guess, at the midway point in the line. When I got into the room, my table was pretty much empty. I ended up sitting at a no-teak table. Like I said, I wasn't even one of the first in the room, and I got a no-teak table, and somebody came in like 30 minutes after me and got the same table too. And everything else, I mean, pretty much every table I saw, I would have been happy at. I personally didn't want a table that had a lot of stuff, because I was thinking I already had a lot of stuff I was bringing home and I didn't have room for it. So I went for a table that didn't have as much stationery at the table. That was just my personal preference, because there were tables that were overflowing. So like my recommendation for that is, yes, you do want to get there early. They say lineup starts at 7. It does start a little bit earlier than that. I can get into that the closer we get, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But I say, as far as the table selection, people get super stressed out about that. As far as that day goes, I will just say, kind of just go into it with an open mind, and maybe not even go into it with a set table in mind, because you have to find that table and you have no idea where that table is. And I feel like just kind of walk around, and when a table calls to you, sit there and be done with it. And then you'll be happy. And usually, like I said, that will lead to a lot less disappointment. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But I would just say you definitely want to make sure that you are there early enough that day, so that way you can get your spot in line and enjoy the conference. So they say it starts on the 17th, and that is, I would say that's more of a pre-conference day. If you're used to going to conferences, that's what you would consider a pre-conference. So during that day, that is when registration opens, as well as the vendor fair. Now the vendor fair stays open throughout the conference. Typically it's going to be like manned, like the booths will be manned during breaks or after like the 1:30 time frame of when like your sessions end. So you can attend it at other times during the conference. Obviously, if we're talking about buying products, certain things may sell out. I personally did not want to buy any products, because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to bring it home. But there were also like photo ops there. It's also a great place to like meet up with people and things like that. It was like meet and greet sessions with some of the shop owners and things like that going on, especially on that first like pre-conference day of Thursday. Like I said, both of those started, like registration and the vendor fair, I think started around 11 or 12. Talking about registration. So I know in DC, I didn't go to the DC conference, but DC and Texas, I'm not sure about the ones prior. They did send your badge as well as some other conference swag to you in the mail prior to the conference. Now, I'm sure that there was some type of cutoff point where if you registered after that point, then they wouldn't be able to do it because of printing and stuff like that. But if you get your badge and stuff early, that makes it so much better, because now you don't have to like rush to get to registration, because all registration is just scanning your QR code, so that way they mark you as being there, and then you pick up your actual conference bag that has your shirt and a couple of other like swag items in it. But it's like not essential, as long as they send you that badge early, that you really be there during that time frame, which kind of gives you all kinds of possibilities about either arriving that day at any point, or if you are not going to have like any extra days added to your trip, maybe that's the day that you can take to explore Indy. And not really have to worry about, oh, I got to make it to registration, because you already have your badge. Like I said, as long as they do that, fingers crossed, I think that's a great idea. It's just a lot less stressful, because now you already have your ticket essentially with your badge already in hand before you even get to the conference. So with that said, that's pretty much the only things that's going on that day. Like I said, there is a welcome party that night from 7 until, I don't remember if it was like probably like 7 till 10 is my guess. I didn't last that long. I was exhausted. But from 7 until 10, like in Texas, it was like a dueling piano. I think they said in DC, it was like karaoke. So it's just a party. It's just like hey, we're here. Let's have fun. They had some like desserts and things like that there for you to snack on, like little miniature things to eat. And then like a cash bar. So that was like your Thursday. So, like if you wanted to, arrive for the conference, but kind of do it the most economical way, then arriving Thursday would probably be the best option. So that way you're like cutting one of your hotel days out by like arriving on Wednesday. So that's an option. So I just kind of wanted to lay that out. Now, again, they've only announced the date and the location and the ticket prices. That's all they have announced. So they haven't mentioned whether or not there is going to be a shop summit this year. They've had a shop summit at least the past 2 years. I'm not sure if they had one prior to that or not. But a shop summit is a one-day session that occurs on the Wednesday. So now we're pre-cruise. Pre-cruise. What am I talking about? Pre-conference. And that one went from 10 until 4 in Texas. I went. It was an extra ticketed event. So you had to pay an extra fee to get in. For the 2024 conference, it was $165. I thought it was well worth it, even though it was geared towards shop owners, and I'm not a shop owner. I thought a lot of what the speakers said was applicable to everybody. It was very empowering. They were talking about how they like started their business, some of the roadblocks they had, some of the advice they would give. But like I said, it wasn't geared to one way or another, because even though they were presenting to shop owners, they still had to be broad, because people were shop owners for different types of shops. So that's why I think it was also applicable to people who aren't necessarily shop owners. I got a lot from it. I actually enjoyed, the even concept of like going to a smaller version of a conference before taking on the bigger conference. So that to me was also worth it. But if you do go to Shop Summit, if they have a Shop Summit, then you also have to take that into account when looking at your overall schedule, because now you're going to have to arrive even earlier. And with that also said, I think we are looking at scheduling. Something that people don't always think about is you also have to look at what you have scheduled after the conference. And the reason why I say that is because you have to remember that you're going to be in a room with thousands of people, and these people are traveling from all over. So, they're flying in and things like that. The likelihood of maybe catching a virus is substantially higher than it would be otherwise. I did get sick when I returned from Texas. I heard that a few other people got sick, actually more than a few other people were sick. I think the same I had heard for Washington, D.C. That was actually the reason why I didn't go to Washington, D.C. was because it was only an hour and a half from me, and I couldn't go because I had a cruise scheduled for like 3 days after the conference ended, and I just couldn't risk getting sick at the conference and then not being able to go on this vacation that I had already had booked and paid for like over a year in advance. So I would say take that in consideration if you have any other plans for the week following the conference or even the weekend following the conference. You really need to think about it, because there is a possibility of you getting sick from being at the conference, not just from like other people, but the fact that you're probably not sleeping as well, not eating very great, not staying hydrated, and then just the wear down of travel. Like your body is like struggling at that point, so it can't fight off anything that's like coming in to attack it. So it's definitely like easier to get sick. And with that said, you might also have to think about if you're doing anything prior. So if you're going on a trip prior to the conference, is there a chance that you could get sick prior to the conference and mess up the conference? So like when you're looking at scheduling and whether or not you can go, sometimes you have to look at like outward and just see what you have going on before or after, just to make sure that it kind of works as well. I think that's pretty much it for the scheduling. So now we're going to get to the important part, which is the money. And as much as I can talk about all of this, I think I'm not, because it is like an individual decision, and like only you know your finances. There are other planner conferences that you could attend that's a little bit cheaper. like half the price. There's like the Chicago Planner Conference, and then there's one in Florida in November. Those do not fit my schedule ever because I just can't take off work during that time of the year because they're, like I said, they're both in November. So, but that is just something that if that's something that you might be able to swing as far as scheduling wise, and this particular conference is too much money. You can maybe look at some of those smaller conferences. But for this particular conference, there is technically 2 pricing tiers, but maybe 3. So the first one is like what they call the pre-sale. And I believe the pre-sale is going to be limited to conference alumni. So if you've attended the conference before, then you'll be eligible for the pre-sale. Or if you've attended Wild University, then you're eligible for the pre-sale. Pre-sale price is $719. If you have to buy the regular general admission, then that is $749, so about $30 more. And they also offer payment plans, which I believe like last year was like $50 a month or $100 a month. I don't remember the exact specifics. You do want to calculate how much that will end up costing you because I do believe it might be a little bit more. I think once you add in all your payments, you might be paying a little bit more than the price. So definitely double check that. I can't say for sure, but obviously only double check that if that's something that like you have, like if you can choose to either pay in installments or pay in advance, and you definitely want to kind of compare and contrast the two. Obviously, if you can only pay in installments, then go for it. But yeah, so that's like the pricing tiers and the cost. I'm not sure, as of at least me filming this video, when they go on sale. My guess is they'll probably announce it like the day that I film or the day this goes up. They should be announcing it soon because my guess is you're going to have to like purchase those tickets, I would think, in January. So yeah, it should be coming pretty soon. I will say, I don't think they're going to sell out. I know that they didn't sell out last year. And I bought my ticket 3 months later. So they went on sale pretty early last year. I think they went on sale September of 2023 for the 24 conference. I didn't purchase my ticket until New Year's Day, y'all. So almost a year ago. So I was kind of late to the game, but a lot of people even purchased them even later than that. I doubt that they're going to sell out. My guess is, they can accommodate a lot more people. This is a big conference. So, they're already planning on accommodating like 2,000 people or so. But if I had to guess, it may even be less people this year, just given the time frame. This time works great for me. Perfect for me. It's one of the reasons why I'm actually considering going. Believe it or not, March or April probably would not work for me this year, but May works for me. Plus it's like a few days before my birthday. So my birthday's on the 21st, so I can kind of see it as like a birthday trip for me. But I think because of the date and people are starting to get into vacation mode and summer vacation mode, it may be a few less people. So I really don't see it selling out. So if it's something that you want to think about, then you probably do have time to think about it. The only catch would be if you're set on staying at the host hotel, you can't book into the room block until you've purchased your ticket. Once you purchase your ticket, you'll get like all this information regarding like other things, like the group code and things like that to book the hotel room, as well as some other things I'll talk about in a minute. So the room block will sell out. There's just not a lot of rooms, and there's just not enough rooms. And like, while people may go the roommate route, there's a lot of people that aren't. So last year, by the time I booked, the room block was sold out, and I was not going to go because of that. However, they ended up opening up other room blocks at nearby hotels. And one of those room blocks ended up being right across the street, and it was at their sister property that was connected by the Sky Bridge. So that was pretty much like staying in the host hotel, except my elevators were a lot faster because it was less people, and people in my hotel weren't necessarily going to the conference. So they were on a different schedule than me, and it was quieter. The lobby was empty. So I think I kind of made out like that. I thought it was a good thing I got that. My guess is if the room block sells out, they may open other blocks at other hotels. However, you can always do it on your own. Maybe look at Airbnbs or things like that, because there are ways to cut cost when it comes to like hotels and transportation and stuff, but not necessarily tickets. They do have volunteers, and if you're chosen as a volunteer, because they do do an application process, and then they only choose a certain amount of volunteers. So just because you apply doesn't mean you'll get chosen. they do refund half your ticket price. So even if you're a volunteer, you still have to pay like $350. But I think you probably like basically they recoup that money in your labor, because from what I can tell, they work hard. And then they also have to get up during the actual sessions to go like retrieve swag to hand out during the session. So they are missing some of the actual sessions for the conference as well. So it's something to keep in mind too, the way like, with the $350, is it worth that or not? Plus, like I said, it's not a guarantee that you will get accepted as a volunteer. I'm not sure how that process works of them selecting volunteers. But that is a way to cut costs on your ticket. That's probably the only way. But like I said, with the rooms, you can cut cost with the roommates. Once you book your ticket, like I said, you'll get the code for the room, but you'll also get access at that point to a Facebook group. And within that Facebook group is where there'll be threads for people looking for roommates. So if you're okay, maybe rooming with someone who you don't know, then that is definitely a way to cut costs. I haven't heard any horror stories. I'm sure there's a few, but they haven't really been vocal about it. I've heard a lot of success stories. I've heard stories of people like choosing to be a roommate by just like the message boards, and then all of a sudden like they room with that person, the same people, like over and over again. So if you're willing to go out on a limb, that is one way that you can save some money, is by joining the Facebook group and looking for a roommate there. Some of the people may already have a room and are looking for people to come and stay in their room to cut costs. Other people may be looking for a room. So either way, that is an option for roommates. The other thing is travel costs. That's just something that, you'll have to like figure out. Definitely consider parking costs if you're driving or renting a car. I heard it can be kind of pricey because I believe this is in downtown, which even makes it more pricier. So I think I read maybe $55 a day. So you definitely want to look into that, especially if you're coming from somewhere where it's a long drive and you are kind of weighing between flying and driving. That's something to consider. Of course, with flying, you also have to think about luggage restrictions and like the 50-pound weight for bags. I will say, I think going over, my luggage was probably 30 pounds, but I had like stuffed my luggage with water because I wanted to have water bottles. So I had like, water bottles. They were all a pound each. Plus I had my carry-on bag in there. So a lot of that 30 some pounds was stuff that I definitely wasn't going to have in my suitcase coming back. And coming back, my carry-on was full to the brim. My carry-on was probably well over 20 pounds. And that had all my sticker books and things like that on it. My suitcase was still 52 pounds. I made it through, no extra upcharge, but it is something to consider too, because you do get a lot of swag, which you may want to like go through some of that swag while you're there and like give it to someone if you're not going to want it, just to save room in your luggage. I wish I would have done that for some things. I ended up bringing it back and gifting it to friends, but definitely, there was some sweaty moments when it was 2 pounds over, because some of those airline agents, they are you're 1 pound over, you're going to have to either start taking things out or forking over some extra cash. So again, that's something definitely to consider as well. I think that pretty much covers the cost. I will say food, while there are snack breaks and some food options, I wouldn't count on that. I would just consider that like a perk. Again, your ticket price doesn't go to that either. Those are all sponsored events. I don't really know what the ticket price goes to. I'm sure it obviously goes to the cost of the conference and them holding it in a hotel. And it goes for those keynote speakers that they have every single year, that I, for one, could do without the big keynote speaker. I don't really think it adds value. I would rather hear from people in the community. I get a lot more from that. And I would like knock 100 or 150 off my ticket price and I have a keynote speaker. I will be a happy girl. But they always have a keynote speaker, so I'm assuming the ticket price goes to that. But sponsors do sponsor food. So I mentioned the welcome party had some like little desserts this year. I don't know what it would have next year. It was a cash bar. They had snack breaks the Monday and Tuesday. That was in 2024. That was sponsored by Cloth and Paper. It was a decent amount of food. Like one day it was like yogurt parfait, more like breakfasty type foods. And then the next day it was like little like cucumber sandwiches type thing, almost like tea time food. I'm guessing that when they get the thing, they say how many people is attending and that's how much food they bring. But there's no one policing the food line. Like it's like a buffet style. You grab what you want. There's no rules that says one per person. Like if you get this thing, you can't get this thing. So people do eat what they fill up their plates, which means, unfortunately, if you're toward the back of the line, you may not get the food. So I would just say it's something that you may get, something you may not get. Go into it like that. The food at Plain Jama was plentiful. It was plentiful. That was dinner for me. It was kind of like finger party foods type things. I can't remember everything that was there, but it was definitely more filling food, definitely fatty foods. And if you were on any type of like dietary restrictions, probably something you couldn't eat, but it was really good. And it was a free bar there. It was an open bar there. That's why I said people weren't really in the food line there. They were in the drink line. That's probably why it was so plentiful. People weren't eating, they were drinking. But yeah, so you got food there, but other than that, food wasn't included. So you have to actually think about breakfast, lunch, and dinner and those added costs. Texas, it was a little bit of a struggle for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We actually had to Uber for lunch one day. I'm hoping it's going to be better in Indy. I haven't done any research on the location to know like what's within walking distance. My fingers crossed that it's a little bit better of a location as far as food goes, but you can always do like Uber Eats or delivery or something like that. Or you can just pack stuff. Like I brought breakfast bars for breakfast. All right, so with that, and with the flights, you can also look at if you know a specific airline carrier that you're probably gonna fly with, maybe look into opening a new credit card with them if you have decent credits, a decent credit score and you don't mind doing that. Because if you like hit a minimum purchase threshold, you'll usually get like 60,000 points or something like that. Deposited, which is enough for a free flight, plus you get free bags. That's how I saved money last year. I ended up paying like $11 in taxes for my flight, and that was it. So that's another way to cut costs if you're willing to do that and if you can get approved and stuff like that. But then that's another expense too. All right, and I think that's pretty much it. I do want to say, prior to going in 2024, I was really nervous about going by myself. Yes, I had a YouTube channel for like a whole year before that. I had been like on Instagram and I was definitely felt like I was part of the community, but I still didn't know anybody. And that just made it really tough to decide to go. And I almost backed out because like that anxiety started getting to me even before I purchased my ticket. I watched so many videos from people that had went to prior conferences. I mean, I watched 2- and 3-year-old videos, and everybody said that once you're there, like people welcome you. You're always going to find someone to hang out with. People are constantly going to come up and talk to you. And I kind of believed it. I mean, I can't say I fully believed it because you're just like, well, is that me or whatever? But I will say it's true. There does have to be a little bit of work on your part, especially if you're staying by yourself. Like if you don't room with anybody, you have to make it a point to leave your room. I know that sounds super simple, but if you're like suffering from anxiety, that is a struggle, is to like leave the room, the confines of your like safe space. But you do have to put yourself out there in that sense. Maybe go sit in the lobby of the host hotel. Because odds are if you go sit in the lobby, let's say you, like for me, I went over to the host hotel on the first night, sat in the lobby, and just sat on one of the sofas. Well, obviously there's more room for tons of people on the sofa. So eventually someone comes over and sits on the sofa. And then because you're both sitting there, a conversation starts because they pretty much can assume while you're there that you're there for the conference and they're there for the conference. So there's just starts to be chat about, hey, where you from? Is this your first conference? You know, blah, blah, blah. So like, I would say it is 100% true. That's really easy to meet people. You'll meet people standing in line. You'll meet people like in registration line. You'll be chatting with people, meeting people then. At the vendor fair, you may run into people there. Sitting in the lobby. I mean, it's a great place to like meet people. And this is how you can make your like lunch and dinner plans. Those are like the key things you got to think about is your lunch and dinner plans. So yeah, that you're just going to randomly run into people. I know it sounds like, is that really going to happen? Yeah, it'll really happen as long as you don't stay in your room. You do have to come out of your room in order for that to happen. There were also some events that were either like officially put on. I don't want to say officially because they were put on by regular people. Like I could have submitted an application to host like a meetup for a certain type of thing over like last year, because they had like a bookmark trading event, a Taylor Swift listening party, and things like that also took place. I went to the newbie event for Go Wild Newbies. There were probably like 50 people in there. It was a lot of people that showed up. They were kind of surprised at how many people showed up. It turned into a Q&A, but it was a really good place to kind of meet people and talk to other newbies, and like, again, find someone to have dinner with. This is before the event starts. So this is before like the Friday. So like these like pre-events are good ways to meet people and kind of like find people to have meals with and things like that. Again, can't say that they're going to have these events this year, because a lot of that's going to happen or be determined by the logistics of the hotel. Like in Texas, they had these extra meeting spaces so they could accommodate this. Whether or not they'll give that opportunity, I don't know. There were also some events that were coordinated by members of like content creators or members of the community that had like Patreons. They had their own events where Patreon members can actually go and like hang out and things like that. Other content creators just had like, hey, I'm going to be in the lobby at this time if you want to come meet me. Those are just really good ways to meet people, not necessarily the person even hosted it, but the other people. For instance, I had originally planned on going to the 2024 conference Thursday through Sunday. Calva Plan, I'm on her PR team, and she hosted a happy hour for her PR team and her Patreon members on Wednesday. I actually changed my flight. There was no cost to do that, but I changed my flight and added an extra night to my hotel. So I paid an extra $300 to go to that event. And I'm so glad I did, because I did. I met people. I ended up meeting a friend who I ended up hanging out with, her and her roommate, the rest of the trip, and had people to eat dinner and lunch with. And somehow Alexa is talking to me right now. I don't know what she's saying. Okay. That completely freaked me out. I just got like a message too. So she was alerting me to something. But yeah, so like if they have any of those this year and you do decide to go, I would definitely recommend checking those out. A lot of those do happen on Thursday instead of Wednesday. Like I said, the one event I went to was on Wednesday, but the majority of them are on Thursday. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Again, you'll find out about a lot of that either on people's social media pages or on like the apps and things like that. So I think that's it. I think that's all I have to share. It was a lot longer than I wanted to share, or a lot longer than I wanted the video to go, but I didn't want to like skimp on anything because it's a big decision. It's a lot of money. Last year, just for the ticket and my hotel room, it was like $2,000. So that didn't include any of the other expenses. That didn't include my Uber rides to and from the airport. That didn't include any of my food. That just included the flight. And the flight, because my flight was free. So it really only included the hotel and the registration. And that was $2,000 alone. So this isn't cheap. So that's why I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about the things to kind of take into account with everything. So yeah. I hope this helped you guys. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them down in the comments. Like I said, even if I can't answer them, and then maybe someone else who's watching this video may be able to. Like I said, I've only attended one Go Wild previously and haven't attended any other planner conferences. So I can't really speak to that. I did find value in it last year. However, I think I got more value out of the experience in general versus like a lot of the sessions or anything. But I think you'll find that with most conferences, even work-related conferences. Yeah, I hope to see you guys. If you plan on attending, definitely let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please press that like button. If you have yet to subscribe, I hope you would also consider subscribing. That is all I have for now, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, or night, and Happy New Year. Bye.